All right, well, I think we're going to get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is everything you ever wanted to know about pet adoption. Presumably, some of you already have animals, and maybe you know a lot about pets or have many, but you want to learn more about ACC. Maybe you've never adopted a pet. Whatever the reason, we're very glad that you are here. This is the first in our animal welfare webinar series. My name is Alex Silver. I'm the Community Outreach and Engagement Manager with ACC. And oops, let me progress the slide. So as I mentioned in the chat, attendees are muted, but you do have access to a Q&A box. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We would be happy to answer them. This is also being recorded. So if you know someone who really wants to know about adoption, you can share this with them later. We should have it ready very soon after the event. And I don't think the chat is working for attendees, but again, you do have the Q&A box, so please ask any questions in that. And today, I'm very excited because we have three fantastic speakers with us from adoptions and also from our vet services department. I'm going to introduce them, and then after that, though, I'm just going to give a very brief overview of ACC for those of you who aren't familiar with who we are and what we do. And then they're going to go right into adoptions. So here we go. Hello, Dr. Warrens. I see Dr. Warren's camera is on. We are joined by, oh, and there's Jenna, and we have Stephanie as well. So I'll just go through their bios really quickly. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Stephanie Feliciano's passion to help animals began in college when she would feed stray cats before heading to class, like we all did, I'm sure. Stephanie graduated with a BA in political science and psychology from John Jay College in 2016. Following her passion to help animals, she joined ACC in January of 2017 as a client care representative. And in that job, she helped reunite lost pets with their owners. She also enjoyed seeing all the other animals leave with their newly adopted families and learned more about ACC's open adoptions process, which we're going to talk about later tonight. Soon after, she was promoted to work as an adoption counselor and then adoption supervisor at ACC's Brooklyn Care Center. She currently cares for 3 fur babies, 2 cats, and a dog. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure, oh, you're muted, but she will speak when she comes. Okay, and then we have Jenna. Jenna McMaster has been a part of the animal welfare community for over 4 years. After earning a master's degree from the University of Washington, where she focused on philosophy of science and ethics, Jenna moved back to New York and started volunteering for local cat rescue groups. In 2016, she became the vice president of Whiskers A Go-Go, Inc., a Brooklyn-based 501c3 and proud ACC New Hope partner, which we'll also discuss what New Hope partners are later. Jenna joined the ACC team as the adoption supervisor at our Manhattan Care Center in December 2019, where she continues to pursue her passion of helping animals in need. She currently lives with her husband and 2 cats in Brooklyn. So far 2 cats seems to be a requirement to be on this panel. Almost continues with Dr. Warrens, who graduated from the University of Florida College of Veterinary Medicine and completed her internship at the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Her full-time job is with us at Animal Care Centers of New York City, where she is the lead veterinarian at our Brooklyn Care Center. And she works part-time with Proeto Veterinary Services. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. Dr. Warrens has 2 dogs and a cat. Okay, so 2 dogs, I got it, but you got the cat. That rules over the apartment. She loves rock climbing, theater, and hiking. Later on, I have a picture of my 2 cats, so I have to get that in there. All right, so this is a really great panel we have. They can answer all of our adoption questions, but as promised, quickly, a little bit about ACC, who we are, for those of you who don't know. I mentioned Brooklyn and Manhattan. That's where our panelists are from, where they work, but we have locations in all 5 boroughs. And we serve as what's called an open admissions animal shelter. And it means just what it sounds like. We are open to any homeless animal that comes through our doors, any animal in need. So it doesn't matter if they are friendly or scared. It doesn't matter if they are sick or healthy. It doesn't matter if they're young or old. In fact, it doesn't even matter what species they are. So pictured here, you see a cat, a dog, rabbit, guinea pig. These are the species that we adopt out and that you'll see on our website up for adoption on any given day, pretty much. But we do take in any animal that comes to our door. So we've had farm animals and reptiles. But today it's all about adoption. So these are the animals we're focusing on. That brings us to the second item on this list, adoption center. In addition to caring for homeless animals that come our way, we are finding new homes for them. We're matching them with adopters pretty much every day of the week. Right now we're open by appointment only, which we'll talk about, but we are open 7 days. And then we are a community resource because our mission is to end animal homelessness in New York City. And it's not enough just to be caring for animals who don't have a home and finding new homes for them. If we really want to achieve that mission, we need to work with people to help them keep their pets and provide resources to pet owners in need. So that is a big part of what we do. And if you're interested in learning more about that, how ACC helps pet owners in need, we are going to have another webinar at the end of September focused on that. And just one more thing about ACC, I had to share these pictures of some of my favorite pictures of what happens at the shelter. This is the doggy play group. We have a dog in the pool. Our cat's learning how to high five. There's a lot that goes on a shelter. You know, obviously the basic animal care, feeding, exercising, socializing our animals, and the veterinary services for all of the animals at the shelter. And there are hundreds of animals at our shelters at any given time. But also behavior and enrichment, which you see here. It's very important they get out and socialize. And then surrender prevention and admissions, as I mentioned, we try to help people keep their pets every day. We're also trying to reunite people with their lost pets. If you ever lose a pet, we hope you will go to our website and file a lost pet report. Check us out. Hopefully we can reunite you. And then, of course, placement. Every day we're adopting animals out. We're transferring them to New Hope groups, which are other animal shelters and rescue groups we work with to find placement for animals in need. We work with more than 300 other rescue groups to move animals out who may not be ready for adoption just yet. And then we also have a wonderful foster program, which I highly recommend. And if you want to learn more about that, we are also having a foster webinar on September 15th. All right. And with that, though, today it's all about adoption. So I'm going to pass this to Jenna. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Hi, thanks, Alex. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, great, yes, no, thank you for that introduction. I'm so excited to talk more about adoptions just in general today. And then Stephanie is gonna tell us more about adoption specifically at ACC. So there are a lot of different reasons to adopt. You know, when you're looking for a pet, you can go to a pet store, you can look at breeders, or you can adopt from a rescue group or your local shelter. So the best reason, my personal favorite reason to adopt, is that you're helping an animal who really needs a home. We get lots and lots of animals every year, you know, estimated 25,000 every year just at ACC alone. And adopting helps not only that animal by giving them a home and giving them a second chance at a great life, but it also then frees up space in the shelter or in a rescue group for them to take in another animal that needs a home. So it's a great cause. And another great reason to adopt is that you can get a great animal. You know, a lot of people think, and we'll talk about misconceptions about adoptions later, but a lot of people think that if an animal's at a shelter that there's something wrong with them. But we get animals for so many different reasons. And a lot of them, I mean, most animals that we get are just perfect and amazing, and I wish I could adopt them all. My two cats are from the Staten Island Animal Care Center, and they're healthy and sweet, and I couldn't imagine my life without them. Another great reason to adopt is the adoption packages, which from what I've heard about people who go to breeders is something that they don't offer, which are a lot of great basic health care, including vaccinations, spaying and neutering, and all for lower cost than you might see somewhere else. And we'll talk a little bit more later what you get with ACC when you adopt. And lastly, and certainly not the last reason to adopt, there's so many good reasons, but you also get the option to get a lot of guidance and follow-up support from animal experts who can help you thrive with your pet. So next we're going to talk about important considerations when you're thinking about adopting. Not only just thinking about adopting in general, like are you ready for a pet, but which pet would be right for you? What kind of pet is great? So one of the most important things that you're going to want to consider is time. Different kinds of animals have different kinds of time commitments involved. So you want to think about what kind of time you're able to offer an animal and what you're looking for in terms of how much time you want to spend caring for an animal. So for instance, Cats can be pretty low maintenance depending on the cat. If you get like kind of a couch potato cat who doesn't need a lot of exercise, then it's just you feed them and you clean their litter box every day, and then that's it. They kind of do their own thing. Whereas if you get a really active dog, for instance, that dog might need to go out a couple times a day on runs, on walks, get out to play, get some of that energy out. So these are important things to consider. Another great thing to consider is who lives with you. Whether you live with family members or if you have roommates, it's so, so important to make sure that everybody is on board with the adoption, that everyone wants an animal, that if other people that live in the household are going to be helping care for that animal, that they know what to expect, and just that everyone's involved in the decision. And you're also going to want to think about your lifestyle, which is kind of related to what I mentioned earlier with time. If you have a really active lifestyle and you like to get out there and go for runs and you want like a jogging buddy, then you're going to want a really active dog. But if you're maybe a little bit more like me and prefer to spend your time hanging out on the couch watching Netflix, then you're going to probably want a more mellow animal who doesn't need so much exercise, like a mellow dog or a low maintenance cat. And you're also going to want to think about care requirements. And I'll let Dr. Warrens chime in a little bit here too, but different kinds of animals require different levels of care, both from individual to individual and from species to species. So not just talking about cats and dogs, but rabbits, guinea pigs, and exotics, for instance, can require, special supplies, special care, and often like specialized vets. Not all vets can see rabbits, guinea pigs, turtles, snakes, that kind of thing. And specific animals also might need special medical needs that, some cats need insulin twice a day. Some dogs need medicated baths weekly. I don't know, Dr. Warrens, did you want to add anything about considering care requirements?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're very thorough on our exams about what medical needs each individual animal has. And so the adoption counselors go over all the medical information for you when you're looking at an animal to adopt. So that's very helpful. And it's important to keep in mind that very young animals, especially if they're under 16 weeks old, need to see the vet every 2 to 3 weeks for their vaccine boosters. And older animals will also need to see the vet a little more often because they'll have more medical needs and need more blood work, every 6 months to a year. So that's important to keep in mind. Oh, also, purebred animals tend to have more medical issues in general, which I think is a very important thing to consider when you're adopting versus buying. It's easy to Google, specific breeds and see what slew of medical conditions they come with. And it's very important to prepare for that because it's likely to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of different things to consider. And that kind of also leads us into common misconceptions and misperceptions about adopting a shelter pet that we see a lot. So the most common thing that we see is that shelter pets must have something wrong with them, otherwise they wouldn't be there. And I hear this all the time in adoptions. If I'm doing an adoption interaction outside with a cute little Shih Tzu dog, and they're sweet and well behaved, and people are like, but this dog seems perfect, like what's wrong with them that they're here? Like there's got to be something, like what's the catch? But in reality, we get animals in for all different kinds of reasons from all different kinds of backgrounds, and there's so many reasons why an animal might come through our doors that have nothing to do with the animal themselves and their medical needs or their behavior problems. I mean, a lot of our animals are perfectly healthy and well behaved and very deserving of a home. Some examples of some of the reasons that we get animals in are that someone moved to an apartment that doesn't allow pets. That's probably the most common thing that we see. Or perhaps someone is like moving to another state for a new job. Sometimes they move in with new people. It's honestly a lot of housing related issues. And it doesn't always mean that there's something wrong with the animal, or that there's anything wrong with their health or anything. So another thing that I hear all the time in adoptions is, well, I can't adopt a big dog because I don't have a house. I just have a tiny apartment. And our canine behavior experts would also agree that when it comes to dogs, having enough time is often way more important than having enough space. There are some dogs that need to get out more times a day than others in order to get exercise. I recently fostered one of ACC's St. Bernards, this big 100-plus-pound dog, biggest dog I've ever seen. And he needed to go out a lot. He had a lot of energy to get out, but he was more than comfortable in my tiny one-bedroom apartment. So space, not the most important thing. Another great misconception that we see a lot is that rabbits make perfect pets for kids. We do see a lot of people who come in and they want, a rabbit or a guinea pig for their kid to take care of. And something that a lot of people don't realize is that rabbits are, in a lot of ways, much higher maintenance than dogs and cats. They're very delicate. They have very specific nutritional needs, and need to be observed pretty closely to make sure that everything is normal and that they're doing really well. And they're also kind of sensitive behaviorally, and it's important to know sort of how to treat a rabbit in order for them to be happy and for you to be happy. So parents should definitely be the primary caretakers of rabbits. And another common misconception is that if you want an animal that you can train or that you can bond with, that you must adopt them as a kitten or a puppy. And this is so far from true. I hear this all the time, like, oh, well, I really want a cat that I can bond with, so I really need a really young cat. And I always tell people my personal experience, which is true, that the cats, I've had a lot of different cats over the years. Spoiler alert, I'm a little bit of a cat lady, if you couldn't tell. And the cats that I have felt most bonded to, I think, were the ones that I adopted at 8 years old. So age has nothing to do with it. And yes, you can teach an old dog new tricks. And the last pretty big misconception that we're going to talk about today is that if you adopt an animal, then you won't know anything about that animal's background. And this is often not the case, because a lot of our animals do come in as owner surrenders for some of the various reasons that I mentioned earlier and many more. And when they do come in as owner surrenders, collect as much information as possible, including what they were like in a home, if they'd been around kids, if they'd been around other animals, are they house trained, are they litter box trained, things like that. And we also are able to make in-shelter and in-foster observations to get a more robust image of that specific animal's personality and habits and needs. And in some cases, it's true that we don't know a lot. But knowing an animal's precise breed, for instance, might not get you very far. So a lot of people make a lot of assumptions about behavior and personality based on what kind of breed they think that animal is. And I think this is what happens a lot with people who go to breeders. But at ACC, and I think that any animal shelter would share this belief as well. All animals are individual, and you can't really stereotype them based on their breed. Let's see, and then this is an example here that you'll see of some of the sheets, the questionnaires that we give to people when they come in to surrender a pet. And I know that you can't read all that teeny tiny typing, but just to give you an idea of the level of detail that we do ask owners when they come in to surrender their pets, just to get as much information as possible so that we can then find the most perfect home for them that we can. And next, we're just going to talk about some common questions when you're looking to adopt. So at the top here, a lot of people ask, should I adopt if I have a small child? And it definitely depends on the child, and it depends on the animal. So, if you have a child who is, more reserved, a little bit more responsible, I guess, like an older child who can be kind of gentle, then a lot of different animals can be a good fit. And if you have a child who's a lot younger and doesn't have a lot of experience around animals, then you would want a much more easygoing cat or dog, for instance, who maybe sometimes we know if they've been around young children before, and so they know how to put up with, grabbing out of nowhere and things like that. And then another question, should you get another pet if you already have one? Is it okay to introduce another animal into the mix? Like, what's the best way to do that? And once again, it depends on the animal. It depends on the animal you have at home, and it depends on the one that you're thinking about bringing in. But in general, the most important thing is to do super slow, supervised introductions, whether you're introducing one cat to another cat, or a dog to a cat, or two dogs together, to just take it slow, make sure that everyone is comfortable every step of the way, before then just letting those animals hang out together. And usually it doesn't take that long. It just really depends on those animals and how they're feeling. So one more question is, what if you have allergies, or what if someone in your family has allergies? So there are a few different things that you can do. Right off the bat, I do want to dispel the myth of certain breeds of animals being hypoallergenic. And Dr. Warrens, I don't know if you have anything to say about this. But yeah, okay. I think Dr. Warrens agrees that there is no such thing as a hypoallergenic animal. And a lot of times allergies are specific to a person. And some kinds of pet dander will irritate someone's allergies more than a different kind of pet's dander. I've found that there are just specific cats even that irritate my allergies, even though most cats, it's totally fine. So it really depends, and it's kind of about you knowing yourself and spending time with those animals to see if that's an issue for you. But there are a lot of things that you can do to diminish the effects of allergies. And one thing would be to get air filters for your house and to regularly groom your animals to cut down on the extra fur and the dander. Another thing is that you can have a separate room that's like a no pets room. So maybe your bedroom is a room where the pet doesn't go, so that you have that pet dander free space for you to unwind. And we've also heard some rumblings about a new food that you can feed to cats that's supposed to decrease the amount of like dander or allergens that they produce. I'm not recommending that, and obviously I'm not an expert about it, but something that you could try. I believe Purina is the brand that's been experimenting with that. And then one last thing about allergies is that a lot of people want to get kittens as a test of if they have allergies or not. And most of the time, kittens don't produce the same level of allergens that an adult cat will. So you might get a kitten and think, hey, I'm not allergic, that's great. And then that cat grows up to be an adult, and then it might be a different story. So all good things to consider. And then another question here, what if you're not home for much of the day? And like we mentioned earlier, that's going to be just a lifestyle consideration that you can think about. And also important to think about, even if you're not home and that animal does need regular attention, like if it's a dog that needs a few walks a day, you might want to think about if you can afford to get a dog walker, for instance, to make sure that dog's getting the exercise it needs, or if you have friends and family who can help out. And these last two questions, I'm going to pass over to Dr. Warnes.
So one of the questions is, do all pets need to be spayed and neutered? Why is that important? I would say about 95% of pets will benefit from spay neuter. It prevents things like cancer in both males and females, and also life-threatening infection called a pyometra, which is an infection of the uterus in females. We see this all the time, and it is life-threatening. And I would much rather do a 15-minute spay than have to do a pyometra surgery where your animal's life is in danger. And you always think like, oh, it won't happen to me, and then it does happen to you. And this is one of the things I'm most passionate about, because I'm a vet and I obviously want what's best for your animal. And spaying and neutering is one of the best things that you can do for your animals. The exceptions are some animals that are older where anesthesia might be too risky. We also don't do spay neuter until animals are about 8 weeks old. Or if animals have some underlying condition such as kidney disease or diabetes, where it would be too risky to do spay neuter, where the risks outweigh the benefits, then that's something we would consider waiving from spay neuter. And then the other question is, how often should pets go to the vet? So younger animals, kittens and puppies, they need to go to the vet every 2 to 3 weeks until they're 16 weeks old. And that's when their immune system is completely covered by their last set of vaccines. The maternal antibodies that they got from their mom have been washed away, and they can handle life on their own. After that, animals need to see the vet about once a year, unless you're having some issue. And then once they're older, I would say around 8 years old and older, every 6 months is ideal to see the vet.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Warnes. And there are a lot of other questions that people have. I'm sure some of you might have some extra questions. And if you go ahead and just pop those in the Q&A box, and we will get to those at the end. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to talk more about adoption specifically at ACC.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining and tuning in today. I do have the pleasure of talking about adoptions at ACC. Just to give you all a big picture, in 2019 alone, we completed over 8,400 adoptions. Amazing. And we also placed more than 9,600 animals with New Hope partners. So our New Hope partners are other animal welfare and rescue organizations we work with to help find placement for animals in need. So I'm very proud of the success we've had here at ACC. In part, I believe it is due to our robust adoption program. We have an open adoptions policy, which is our way of removing barriers to adoption. So previously, it was very difficult to adopt an animal. You will have to fill out maybe like a 10-page application, and maybe if you answer a question a way that an organization did not approve of, then you will automatically be disqualified to adopt. But at ACC, we use a 1-page application, and we use that really as a conversation starter, really, to get background information on the adopter, their experience level, what they're looking for in a future pet, and then we can begin the adoption process from there. So it's very open and non-judgmental. When you adopt from ACC, you are adopting a thoroughbred. Thoroughbreds are, like New Yorkers, very proud. We, like Jenna was talking about earlier, we look at animals as individuals. Most times they are mixed breeds, so we do not use any breed labels. So we call them our thoroughbreds. They come from New York City. To find a thoroughbred, there are two ways. You can either check our website at nycacc.app, or you can download our mobile app. It's called ACC of NYC. I highly recommend downloading the mobile app because it offers a helpful feature where you can set up notifications by your preference. So you can select the species you're looking for, or gender, weight, and that way you'll be the first to know. And we have a thoroughbred that matches what you're looking for. You can also potentially attend a virtual adoption event. So previously, before the pandemic, we would hold adoption events across the city every weekend. But now we have moved over to virtual adoption events, which have been very successful. I personally prefer the virtual events because you get to see the animal in their natural environment in a foster home, and you get to hear from the foster parent firsthand on the personality and, you know, their routine. So it's a really nice glimpse of how it will really be once you adopt that animal. Keep tabs on our website and our social media platforms for any updates on upcoming mobile adoption, virtual mobile adoption events. And then we're going to move on to our new adoption process. So basically, the first step is you find a thoroughbred on our website, and then you submit an application to the adoption team. We will schedule an appointment for you to meet the animal in shelter, or if the animal is at a foster home, we will send over your information to the foster parent so that you both can coordinate a place and time that works best for the both of you. After the interaction, if all goes well, we will collect the adoption fee. I'll go over adoption fees in a little bit. And then we will also collect a spayed neuter deposit if the animal is unable to get spayed or neutered at that point. And then after you take the animal home, we will schedule a counseling session. So we will review all medical and behavioral information. We will discuss the general cat or dog care, as well as encourage positive reinforcement strategies. There are a lot of times where we see dogs have separation anxiety, or we notice on-leash reactivity in the shelter. So we will give you some tips on how to help manage that behavior. And then we also have behavioral resources. So if you go on our website, you can see all of the behavioral flyers our teams created. They provide some do's and don'ts of the best way to manage any behavioral concerns that you're having with your pet. We will also have after like a week or two post-adoption, we will follow up with you to see how everything is going with your pet. So although you are adopting, some people may feel like, oh, I'm on my own now. I took the animal home. You are not alone. We are always going to be here as a resource to help. If you're having any behavioral concerns, we can have a behavior expert from ACC give you a call and give you some tips on how to help manage that behavior as well. So pre-pandemic, we were open 7 days a week for people to come by and meet and browse all of our animals through the adoption rooms. Now we are closed to the public. We are operating by appointment only. So you must submit an application in advance online, and that way you can receive an appointment. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So now fees and what's included. Fees can range from $25 to $250 depending on the age and species. All adopted animals receive the same standard care. So they all are vaccinated, they'll be spayed or neutered, microchipped, dewormed. Our cats are tested for feline leukemia and FIV. Dogs are tested for heartworms. When you adopt a dog from ACC, we will give you a leash and collar to go home with. For our cats, we can provide temporary carriers to send them home in. You will also receive 2 different vet certificates to get you started at the vet, where you will have the option to choose where you would like to bring your newly adopted thoroughbred for their first vet visit, and the physical exam fee will be waived. So as Dr. Warrens mentioned earlier, vet care is very important. So we try to help you get started with your first vet visit. And we also have some special adoption fees. Adoption specials. Our first adoption special is for our vets. It's called Pets for Vets. We are pleased to waive adoption fees for our veterans looking to take pets home. It is available to all military personnel, past and present. So we will waive the adoption fee. The only fee that will be required is the $8.50 for the dog license. Our second adoption special we have is Seniors for Seniors. It is for any senior looking to add a loyal companion to their home. It's open to adopters age 60 years or older. Adopted animals must be at least 6 years old. And our next adoption special is called Sniffles. So it's for our cats and dogs who have an upper respiratory infection. Their adoption fee will be waived and they can go home with antibiotics. And lastly, our last adoption special is NYC ID. So if you have an NYC ID, it is available for all NYC residents. You can sign up to get an ID card, and that ID will give you $25 off your total adoption fee. So if you're adopting an older cat, 6 years or older, then your adoption fee will be waived completely. All right, and these are some pictures of our happy tails and animals that we've adopted over the past year, as well as this year, 2020. Please remember to begin the adoption process. Simply visit our website or download our mobile app to see who we have available. And with that, I will hand it back over to Alex for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Get my video back up. All right. I learned a lot during that presentation. So thank you, guys. We are at the question portion of tonight, and I see that our question and answer box has been a little active, but I don't know that we got to all of them. If you do have any questions, please go to Q&A, type them in if you haven't already. All right, so let me just look and see if we have any that have not come up yet. And thank you, Dr. Warrens. I see you answered a bunch. I may read some aloud just so everybody can benefit from that. Sophia asked, how do we help our dog through past trauma behavior, such as abandonment, protective behavior, heightened anxiety? And I see Dr. Warrens, you responded about all those behavior resources. Yes, and if anyone ever has any issue with their pet, whether or not the animal was adopted from us, you can email us for support. You can use this web address info@nycacc.org. You can also email admissions@nycacc.org. And if you have any questions at all, you see the address that's on your screen now. If anything wasn't clear during this webinar, please email communityoutreach@nycacc.org, and we'll send you what you need to know. Let's see. All right.
I think I see one that hasn't been responded to yet that Stephanie and I can answer. From Amit. I'm a first-time pet adopter, and I sometimes see on applications that I must put down a vet. Since I do not have a pet, do you think it's best to reach out to a vet prior to the application process? So I think this depends on who you go to, but for ACC, we do ask if you have a vet, but the answer to that question does not in any way preclude you from adopting an animal. If you have had pets before and you've seen a vet, we would love to have that information. But if you've never had a pet before, so you don't have a vet, it's totally fine. We always, like Stephanie mentioned, we provide vet vouchers. So those will list different vets that you can go to in order to begin that relationship. And if you want to, you can shop around at vets prior to adopting, but having a vet in place is not necessary to adopt an animal from ACC.
Okay, thank you, Jenna. Thank you for that. I think one of the questions was cut off, so I'm not sure if we got the whole thing, but we'll see if we can answer it. Kanisha asks, I'm going to be a first-time pet owner. Yay, that's very exciting. I am usually home during the day, but I'm wondering about things like traveling for vacations or holidays. I've read that if you don't have friends in the area to pet sit for you, you can consider things like, and I think our character limit cut off her question, so we don't know what she was considering. But do you guys, Jenna or Stephanie, Dr. Warrens, have any suggestions on people who travel, what they might do? I think, Jenna, you might have mentioned that a little bit in considerations.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Warrens actually put an answer in there. So, Dr. Warrens, do you want to explain your answer a little bit, and then I can add if necessary?
Oh, I see. I see the rest of the answer. Apologies. Yeah, so let me just read that. So people can consider things like a kennel or pet hotels. And this person was concerned that it may cause pet stress or may not be as safe. Do we have any experience with these types of places or recommendations? And Dr. Warrens, I'm sorry, I do see you responded. Do you want to just mention?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's lots of options available. You can also hire people to come to your house and walk your dog however many times a day and however long you want, and also take care of cats. Cats are pretty low maintenance. So if I go out of town for the weekend, I'm like, all right, see you on Sunday. And she's like, oh, you were gone? I didn't even notice. Whereas my dogs, I try to take with me, but I've made great friends with my upstairs neighbors because they also have a dog. So we switch out with pet sitting duties, and that's fantastic. But also, like boarding facilities and pet hotels, some dogs love them. Like they go there and it's paradise because they get treats all the time and they get to play with other dogs. So every animal is kind of unique, and you have to figure out what would be best for your pet and for you.
Thank you very much.
To follow up on that, yeah, I hate to keep saying it depends on the animal, but it really does. And once you get to know your pet, you can figure out the best option for them. But I do know that a lot of pet sitting companies will make home visits. So if you have a cat, they'll come to your home and change the litter and feed the cats and stuff. I've done that personally and had great experience with that. And for dogs going to boarding facilities, for instance, for some, I think some dogs, if they have like a lot of separation anxiety, maybe that would really stress them out. And so that might not be the best option. But for other dogs, like Dr. Warren said, they might love it. So I think it depends.
All right. Another question, is foster to adopt an option?
Yeah, absolutely. I can answer this one. So we've been doing this a lot more lately, and it's been such a great option for us, for our animals, and for all of our adopters. So our foster to adopt program basically means that you start off by technically fostering the animal, and you get 2 weeks in order to get them home with you. You get a routine together, and so you can see what they're like in a home environment before you make the final decision to adopt. And more often than not, it works out so great, and it's a great opportunity to get to know that animal in a home setting before you do make that decision. And if it doesn't work out, they come back to us, and it's not a big deal. In terms of who is able to do the foster to adopt, it's available for most animals, but we tend not to offer foster to adopt for small dogs that don't have behavior issues and for kittens, just because they're in extremely high demand and there usually aren't any issues that you would really need to get them in a home environment to see if it's a good fit first.
And Jenna, can I ask you a follow-up question? Because you mentioned, if it doesn't work out, they can come back to us. And I imagine some people might be concerned whether or not they're fostering or they go straight to adoption. What happens if it doesn't work out? Whether or not they're fostering, again, if they adopted and then they realize something, it's not a good fit, how do we feel about returns? Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people are worried that if they adopt and it's not a good fit, and they have to return the animal, that they won't be able to adopt again, that there's some stigma against that. And people also worry if they do the foster to adopt and it doesn't work out, that might hurt their chances from foster to adopting another animal in the future. And at ACC, that's definitely not the case. We totally understand that certain animals are not the best fit for every situation, and we want to make sure that it is a perfect fit for you and your family, and that everybody's happy, not just you, but the animal as well. So if a foster to adopt or even a full adoption doesn't work out, we will always take those animals back, no questions asked, and happy to help people find someone who is a better fit.
And sometimes we actually learn more about that animal, right, in the home that we could probably find.
Exactly.
We didn't have more information.
And one option that we offer people who are doing a foster to adopt and it's not a perfect fit, if the animal is doing well there, it's not a forever animal, it's not the perfect fit, that person can continue fostering that animal in their home until we find another adopter, so that the animal doesn't come back to the care center. But of course, coming back to the care center is always an option.
All right, thank you. So we have another question here. If we're interested in more than one pet on the site, which I completely understand because I look at it and I want to take them all home, would we be able to meet with multiple pets or talk with a counselor to find out which pets we may be most compatible with? So yeah, what do you do if you kind of look on the app or the site and you're like, ooh, they all look cute or they both look adorable and they sound like good fits? What's the best step?
Yeah, oh, wait, Stephanie, did you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I can jump in. We see this all the time. If you have more than 3 animals that you're interested in, we would have an adoption counselor give you a call so we can go over each record one by one so you can get a better feel of which animal needs follow-up care or which one you think will be a best fit for your home. And we'll try to narrow it down to at least the top 2. But nowadays we have more applications than animals available, so we would need to make sure that there's no other applications in line for the animals that you express interest in. But we can definitely set it up so that when you come in to do an interaction, if the interaction doesn't work out, we'll try to find like a backup animal for you to meet with.
We may have said this earlier. I'm sorry, just to repeat though, we do have a first come first serve, right, at ACC, so that if an animal gets multiple applications on the website, we're going to go in the order that they came in, generally speaking. But if you don't get the first animal you see, I mean, that's the great news. There's so many wonderful animals, so hopefully you can then say, oh, but what, okay, I want this one. All right, so let's see. Are there other questions? Someone asks about behavior evaluations. How is an animal's behavior evaluated? In the past, the SAFER was used. Is this no longer the case? And that was a test for dogs, for those of you who may not be familiar with that. But we do have canine and feline behavior teams and enrichment teams who try to get a sense of how the animals are. And I don't know if the adoption team or Dr. Warrens, anyone wants to speak a little bit more about that, what they do. Hopefully we'll have another webinar all about the behavior team and we can really get into detail about it.
Yeah, I can add on that. Our behavior team do a few different assessments. So they have play group, then they have the one-on-one assessment with the animal. They check to see like how they are when it comes to the leash, if they're pullers, their sociability. So there's a lot of different categories that they try to fill in the information, and we do provide that when you express interest in adoption. But ultimately, the best way is for you to come in and meet with the animal so you can see how they are in person. Because, you know, they can be one way when we first evaluate them, but then over time, as they get more adjusted, they feel more comfortable, they can come a little bit more out their shell.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's not one test. It's observations throughout their stay at the shelter, maybe what their former owner told us. So there's a lot that goes into it. We really should have, I think, another webinar all about that. That would be really interesting and great. And I see, okay, some other questions were asked. Someone says, I would be a first-time dog owner. I have a cat now, but what if you are a complete newbie regarding dogs and training? Does ACC have trainers or training resources?
Yeah, so I can answer this one. So the idea that cats and, first of all, the idea that cats and dogs are mortal enemies is simply not true. And there are a lot of different things that you can do to introduce a cat and a dog to make sure that they have the best possible chance of getting along and maybe even becoming friends. We do have a team of canine behavior specialists and feline behavior specialists, like Stephanie mentioned. They have created these really amazing flyers that were referenced earlier that specifically address how to introduce a cat to a dog, and dog to cat. And they are also available for follow-ups. So, and we also can talk more in detail about the introduction process and different training techniques in a counseling session, that counseling session that Stephanie mentioned earlier. And then if further follow-up is needed and, you need some extra advice or information about training resources, we are always available to offer that advice. And even if it's been more than a couple weeks, we have people who reach out to us after like a year and they're having a new issue. And we're always available to our clients for those kinds of things.
Oh, you're on mute, Alex.
Thank you. You'd think after 5 or 6 months of this, I'd get the hang of it, but no. I was just reading another question. Do volunteers still get a discount when adopting a pet? If anyone doesn't know, ACC has amazing volunteers. We have hundreds of cat, dog, rabbit volunteers, other volunteers who help us out. It's been a little strange with the pandemic, but we really, really rely on our volunteers. And I believe the discount still applies. I don't know, Jenna, Stephanie, if you know anything different. I believe volunteers will still get a discount. And in the future, hopefully too, we'll do another webinar, I think, all about volunteering and ways to get involved if that's something you're interested in. All right, let's see, do we have any other questions? I don't know. I think we've answered them all. If we've missed your question, I apologize. Or if you think of one, right after we end the session, please don't hesitate to email us at communityoutreach@nycacc.org. Any questions about adoptions in general, anything that came up. And I hope you will also check out our future webinars. You may have already seen them when you signed up for this, but we have a whole bunch of webinars. If you go to nycacc.org/webinars. If there are any Spanish speakers that you know who are interested in adopting, our next webinar is actually all about adopting in Spanish. So that's coming up on August 28th. And we have a whole wonderful lineup. So just before, let me see. Yeah, we have 1 or 2 more minutes. Before we end, I just want to ask Jenna, Stephanie, Rachel, Dr. Warren, are there any things that we left out? Do you think that we should touch on? Anything that came to mind? We talked a lot. I'm going to use this moment to go back and show the picture of my cats.
I guess there's one other thing that I would mention to kind of follow up on one of the questions about wanting to apply for multiple cats and wanting to come in and meet them in person. And obviously things are different now in the era of COVID. I guess I did want to remind people of the foster to adopt option. I know a lot of people can be kind of overwhelmed by the idea of having to choose an animal based on just a picture and then maybe a brief interaction. And that can be kind of stressful for people. They feel like they don't have enough time to get to know them. But situations like that are what the foster to adopt option is perfect for, because then you get that time to spend with them in your home to see if it is a good fit for you.
That's a great point.
And that's a very cute cat, Alex.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm sorry. I was muted when I tried to jump in earlier because, again, I didn't figure it out. But these are Lucas. I want to show you Lucas and Freddie Mercury. They're both from our Manhattan Care Center. And because I'm the host, I get to put my pets in the presentation. That's just how it works. So I put them in. They were adopted in 2012 separately, but I left out they are best friends. They're 3-year age difference, doesn't matter. They love each other. So I just had to show them as an example. But now I will go back to our end slide. and just say thank you for joining us. And thank you to the panelists, to our adoption supervisors, Jenna and Stephanie, to our veterinarian, Dr. Warrens. We really appreciate you guys. I really did learn some more things myself, and I thought I knew pretty much all there was to know about adopting from ACC. So thank you so much. Everybody else, we hope you enjoyed this, and we hope you will check out our website right away. We are also on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, so you can follow us there and see adorable photos. And again, any questions, shoot us an email. Thank you so much, everybody, and stay safe out there. Good night.